Design Leader Insights is brought to you by Fuego UX, a UX design consultancy focused on creating simple and intuitive digital experiences. Hey, Abhijit, thanks so much for joining the show today.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me here. Excited to have a chat with you.
Yeah, of course. And as we get started, can you tell the audience a little bit of your background and journey in UX design?
Sure, absolutely. So my journey started as an engineer, and then I quickly realized that I wanted to kind of follow my creative passion, and went to design school, got my master's in industrial design, and that's really the start of my journey into design. Worked as an industrial designer for a few years before I switched over to user experience design, or usability engineering as it was called back then.
Mm-hmm.
All through my career, kind of worked across different domains, different industries, different countries, different cultures. And now I work at Amazon. I lead their design and research team, specifically working on AWS industry products. And my team is involved in solving some of the wicked industry challenges. I call them as problems of tomorrow. So it's an interesting area to work at a company like Amazon, who feels like a 1.5 million employee startup.
Thanks for giving us a little bit of insight in the journey. A lot of questions about that. So I think first of all, I think throughout that journey, now it sounds like you lead a team. Tell us about that transition into being a leader at where you're at, and kind of how you move from IC to leader.
Sure, absolutely. So I've done this switch a couple of times in my career. I have obviously I started as in an IC role, as a designer, researcher, and then started managing smaller teams. As the scale and complexity of my projects kind of grew, I became manager of managers, and then at one point I was also leading a business unit focused on design services. So in a typical agency model, kind of ran a P&L, led sales, led business development. And at some point when I was kind of growing rapidly, I realized that, being in that managerial role, I was kind of getting removed and moving away from the customer problem. Yeah. And that's when I decided to kind of come back into a senior IC role, and really kind of lead some complex product challenges, at some of the companies that I worked at in an IC role. And I did that for multiple years, and kind of switched back to this role at Amazon, to lead a team, a small team, but a very focused team, which is working on, like I said, some of the complex industry problems.
Tell me how you approach collaboration with counterparts, right? Like designing future initiatives or future products. I'm sure that's done in conjunction with engineering and product teams. What's kind of essential there with that collaboration?
Yeah, so I think in general, when you are working in a design team, right, you are kind of expected to collaborate both horizontally as well as vertically within your functional areas. And I think that's one of the core skills, I would say, that you need to kind of practice and kind of become expert at as a designer, because you have to kind of influence in a multi-stakeholder environment. Very often you need to kind of collaborate with the product managers on overall product strategy, vision, roadmap, and then of course with your engineering partners. So as they say, product is the three-legged stool, right, between design, product, and engineering. What I've seen recently is that the roles and the boundaries between the roles are kind of getting a little bit more blurred. Designers are expected to bring in a product thinking. The product managers are expected to bring in the user-centered approach. And then the engineers are kind of also kind of looking at the overall business strategy and how the technology story evolves along with the business strategy, right? So I think having that kind of a more homogeneous working culture within the product teams is going to be crucial moving forward.
you talked about futures, like designing for what's next. And I think probably in 2023, a lot of teams are going to be asked to do that. Like, hey, let's innovate. Let's think about what's next year. Where do you go for inspiration to kind of like figure out what should be on that design roadmap?
Great question, Alex. And something that is constantly being debated, at my current team at Amazon, but even in past, right? Because in many ways, as designers, we are creating things, designing things that don't exist.
Yeah.
Very often, we are also trying to find out problems which are not well articulated, right? We often call them as unstated needs of the users, right? So if you go and ask users what you want, so what they want and what they need are two different things.
Yeah.
So I think falling back on the research and really kind of using your observation and interview skills, and of course now increasingly data, to really look for those insights, which are hidden insights very often in the world that we live in, and try to kind of project them into future, right? In terms of what does it really mean? I often kind of leverage the adjacent areas. So, for example, if you are working in healthcare, but as a user, your mental models are often not just shaped by the website that you're using in the healthcare domain, but maybe your mental models are evolving because of the travel website that you have used, or a banking app that you have used, right? And we all tend to kind of evolve those mental models. So having that kind of an understanding of what are some of the core intrinsic customer behaviors, user behaviors, and how do you kind of marry that with some of the technological tools that are available to you to shape experiences, and also kind of start shifting the mental models of the users and kind of get them ready for the future experiences, right? I think that's going to be the role of a designer, to kind of really not just look at some of the best practices, but also start thinking about what are the next practices.
Let's switch gears here to advice you have for new designers entering the field, emerging designers.
There are a lot of inspirations that designers can take. Over the last 5-7 years, we have seen how data has become an important partner for design, and leveraging data to kind of really get insights in terms of not just in terms of new ideas, but also getting a real-time feedback on how your design and how your product is performing are valuable things. I think going forward, the role of designers, I would say there are a set of skills and competencies that the designers will have to kind of really focus on. One is, bringing in that holistic product thinking. So not just kind of bringing in the core skill sets as a designer and your understanding of, all the tools that you use and the design process itself, but really kind of bringing a more holistic approach towards, the product thinking. Thinking about not just about the users, but also about the business model around why the product is going to be successful in the market, how the product fits into the overall ecosystem, because we now live in a very hyper connected, hyper dependent kind of world. So for your product to be successful, it's not enough for your product to be well designed. It's important how well your product works with the other products in the ecosystem, right? So thinking about that from a holistic point of view is going to be critical. The second thing that I would highlight is extreme collaboration. As a designers, right, we cannot be working in our own silos, right? I encourage my designers to kind of go out and collaborate with all possible kinds of stakeholders inside the company, and making sure that we are open to ideas and insights coming in from all directions. So having that kind of a collaborative mindset and making sure that we are open to ideas, because to me, user experience is not something that is owned only by a small set of people inside a company. Everyone in a company owns user experience or customer experience, right? So as a designers, we could be the custodians of it, but essentially it's a highly collaborative function. The third thing that I would mention is, hone in your negotiation skills and your skills to persuade others, right? And it kind of leads to ultimately storytelling. As a designer, how do you ensure that you are getting the right support? And for that, having good negotiation skills when you are negotiating with your product manager or your engineering partner, making sure that you are not looking at it as a zero sum game, but
Yeah,
really trying to kind of co-create a value for your, ultimately for your user, for your customer, as one team.
100% agree. That's all great advice. And Abhijit, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.